What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Digital Art with Jesus Conde. Today we're going to be working on this character called Glimmer from the Netflix show She-Ra. And I just wanted to make a fan art of this character because I really like it from the series. And to start, I'm going to do a sketch first on paper. Normally, that's my preferred way on drawing. I don't like drawing on the tablet too much. Even that I can do it is not like my preferred way. I always felt like drawing on paper is way more intuitive, way more also you can be more concentrated. That's really a plus than working on your PC. On your PC you have a lot of distractions with like YouTube and stuff like that. Even that I have a switch to turn the internet off. Sometimes I get on YouTube way too much or other pages. And also, for some reason, my drawings just look better. So that's why I prefer that way mostly. So there is a couple of ways of getting your image in the computer. One of them is just taking a picture with your phone. I don't especially recommend this because it's a lower resolution. The preferred way is always going to be a scanner, and try to do it on over 600 dpi. But if you just have a phone, let's just go with that. That's okay. The next thing you want to do is desaturate your image. You open that panel with Ctrl U on your keyboard, or going to image adjustments and hue and saturation, and that way you get rid of all that color that you could have from ambient lighting when you took the picture, or that bluish color when you do scan an image. The next thing will be the levels. The levels are a very important thing that you want to manage. You open that panel with Ctrl L, and if you move the from right to left, you get rid of the whites or like the whiter values, and then from the left to right you punch the darker values. So but you don't want to do that too much, because if you go too dark, the drawing starts to look really a little bit more like on the dirty kind of side. The next is doing transformations. You might want to change the drawing a lot depending on how good you draw. In my case, I have to change it a lot because I'm still learning how to draw faces and stuff like that. And you can either use the transform tools or the wrapping tool, and that's a very viable way of changing things. And also stuff like adding like a contour line a little bit more here and there, just to have things more clear before painting. That layer of the drawing should be on multiply blending kind of mode, because if you don't do the multiply, then everything that you do is going to be a mess later. So put your image on multiply before going forward, and then what you want to do is block that layer, so you don't accidentally paint on top of that layer that you did the drawing. The next step is this one, is the cast shadows, and that's a new layer, and you may want to have that layer on multiply too, the one of the cast shadows. I decided to do this one because this was really hard, and I'm imagining that the lighting is coming from the right on front of her, a little bit on the top, and you want to imagine how the shadows will be cast on his face and neck and part of his chest. And because of the shape of the hair, it will be kind of like if she was wearing like a helmet kind of thing, like, well, not a helmet, more like a hat kind of thing. So you will have shadows on like half of her face like that. You have to be really aware of like three-dimensionality of the image. Like, I know we are doing a 2D image, but what you're trying to achieve is something that looks with volume, with 3D. So you have to take that in mind. If you don't find reference on the internet to kind of see how the shadows could be cast, ask somebody to take you a picture with the lighting that you want to have. It should be a really hard light, like a lamp or something. It shouldn't be a soft light. Or you can even go to the outside and take it outside. The problem with taking a picture outside is that you're gonna be locked on where the sun is for this lighting. So it's more accurate if you just do it yourself with a lamp. Next layer, like create another layer and put it under all of that, and we're gonna be doing the base colors. Now the base colors were really easy in this case because I'm doing a fan art, so I'm just copying the colors from the original character on the TV show, Netflix show, but I did change them a bit. I didn't want it to look so saturated because we're doing something realistic and the reference is something very, very cartoony. So I just wanted to go a little bit more desaturated, although at the end I kind of punched the colors a little bit again, but I mean, when I was working on it, I wasn't actually thinking about that. I was really thinking about making everything a little bit less colorful in general. And that's just an artistic decision that I made at the end. Then what you want to do is really put all the colors that you need. You don't want to leave anything out because then it will be. It's not like it's gonna be more difficult to change them later, but you definitely don't want to have to go back to that step later. So now we activated the shadow layer that we did before, and because it is in multiply, everything that you do in color wise, like with the Control U open, Control U panel open, which is tone and saturation, like hue and saturation, you can then like change the color of the shadows a bit, moving those bars. The next thing you want to do is add a little bit of highlights on the image. Adding these highlights is tricky because you may need to have a reference for that. That's more difficult than the shadows, I will say. Even if you do shadows badly, it can look really wrong, but the highlights, I think, are way more important. So somehow you can really mess up an image if you put the highlights on the wrong area. So you definitely need a reference for that. And right now I just picked up the brush that I use for sketching, and I want to try to paint this whole image just using that brush. Now it's gonna be tricky because it's a really thin brush, but I just wanted that look of like this, like kind of like really yes, a sketchy look on the painting. I don't know how to explain it. It's more like a kind of like what they reposted does somehow, and in his with looks painterly. And I know he used Clip Studio Paint, and I do have that program too, but I for some reason I haven't been able to to transfer to that program really. So right now I'm just trying to fix the image constantly. That's what's on my mind. Just to find ways of making the image better. That's a really like easy way to put it, right? So it's like, for example, right now I was just trying to make the shape of the mouth better. Now this part it was really dark, so I just tried to change that a little bit. It's basically having that in your mind all the time. Now you do need a reference for this. You cannot just do it by yourself from your mind. I mean, you could try it, but it's gonna take like triple the time to do it than if you do it with reference. Like in the reference you're gonna see the obvious mistakes in terms of like the shape of the shadows, because at the end everything is more like about the lighting, like how does the lighting behaves on the surface of the face. And if you have a reference from real life, you can actually take good decisions about this. If you don't, you really have to be a really good experienced painter to do that. Here fixing the shape of the neck, the mouth again, it's like constantly trying to achieve that. Then the nose was way too big for a girl to be this cute, to have a nose like that, and that kind of stuff. It's always constantly trying to fix the shape of the face. And as you can see, obviously I'm not using a big brush, it's a really thin brush, and it may not be the best process if you're learning to work this way, but I really like it. Now the reason that I'm doing it the opposite way is because I already know that the image kind of looks good on the other way. So if I fix it to look better this way, like the opposite, which is where it looked really awful, when I turn it back to the other side, it's gonna look way better, or at least that's what I was thinking when I was doing it that way. So it's kind of like a I don't know if it's a technique that I have on my own or everyone does it. I know everyone turns the image to the other side just to check, but I don't know if they do it like this way, having this on their mind. So something that comes really handy using this kind of brush, like small all the time. First of all, you don't lose time changing the size of the brush at all. Like obviously I've changed it, but I haven't changed it too much. And that changing size of the brush, it really takes a lot of time. And right now I have the Z, which is the zoom, activated, but normally I deactivate the zoom, so I don't have to zoom in and zoom out constantly. When you zoom in and zoom out constantly, you also lose a little bit of time. So you can really cut down a lot of the time from painting if you just stop zooming in and out and trying to paint from kind of like a decent distance. The reason why I have the painting on the other side of the screen like that is actually just to look at the painting completely without having to zoom off too much. And that way, again, it's way better. First of all, you can see you should see your image constantly, full size. That way you can like spot mistakes and stuff like that, especially mistakes with values. You can spot them really easy that way. If you don't, what's gonna happen is you're gonna have to be zooming in and out constantly all the time, and that's a really, first of all, it's time consuming, and second, it's not really you're gonna be doing something, then zooming out and see what was wrong, then trying to change it, zooming out again. And I know it sounds like I'm being very like strict with this, like very picky, but it really does. When you're painting traditionally, you're not doing that. You're just looking at your whole image all the time. You don't have resolution, you have real life resolution, you have the size of the brush really matters, and you cannot change that. Also, you cannot change the size of the brush, you cannot change the size of the canvas. You're just locked to that, and that really is an advantage in terms of like concentration and everything else. So I'm just trying to recreate the same thing here. Obviously, it's never gonna be the same as drawing or painting on paper or canvas, but you can get close to that experience if you don't get distracted as much. If you wanna know a little bit about my concentration ritual, sometimes I turn off my phone. That's a really important thing right now, with all the messages and stuff like that from social media or the same YouTube channel, like notifications of comments and things like that. So you may want to either turn off your notifications from almost every app or just turn off your phone. I will recommend just turn off your phone so you don't have that temptation, and at least try to do it for several minutes at a time, like let's say 1 hour and a half without looking at my phone, which is really hard these days. At least I cannot do it if I don't have it turn it off, to be honest. Okay, now I'm rambling too much. I'm adding a lot of hairs everywhere because I noticed that the hair need a lot of work, and also a little bit shape change. And again, I'm still trying to fix everything, all the image, trying to find ways where I can improve it. Trying to see on the reference what things that I can do to make it a little more prettier, more finished looking, without getting too much, without doing way too much. When you do way too much, then it starts to look weird. Way too detail is a bad thing too. So you may want to do it kind of like in the halfway there. And sometimes I will do a change and do it like a 50% opacity on that layer, just to see if was it before, was it better before, was it good how it was before. So you have to be constantly asking yourself that, honestly, to doing this kind of thing, to do digital painting, because what you want to do is to keep going forward, not backwards. And you can really go backwards, especially if you're really zoomed in and you haven't seen your image from far away. Okay, so now I'm adding this kind of like a star looking thing. I guess they are important because of the character has them. It's kind of like her thing. So I just created them on another layer, so they wasn't very distracting on the rest of the creation of this image, and put them in a group that I can turn on and off later. I'm still again thinking about volume, so I'm adding some highlights everywhere I can, and still I think the hair is really important, especially if you're doing a woman or a girl. It's really important on an image, so you may want to try to get that as accurate or as cool looking as possible, because that way it will be realistic. Man, especially, like, I don't know, like, we don't really take care too much about the hair. I don't know if I'm speaking wrongly about every man in the world, but me personally, I don't do that. Maybe that's why, because I'm bald. But I've noticed that men especially don't take too much care about their hair. Actually, it's more like just brush it a little bit, that's it. At least not the same as a woman. So if you want a female or a woman drawing or painting to look good, you do have to take some time doing the hair and all the things that women really care about, because that way will really look more realistic. Maybe I don't know if what I'm saying is sounding sexist or whatever, but I mean, you have to acknowledge they do have a better understanding of how to say that, like how to look appropriately or how to look their best in general, right? I'm not saying every woman is like that, but in general, women tend to be more aware of these kinds of things. So if you're painting a girl, you should kind of get into that mindset that they really do care about these kind of things. For example, I think my wife will say that her eyebrows are not well done, or like the eyelashes either are very sketchy, they should be more clean or something like that. Anyway, this part of the metal was really tricky, man. Doing it with this brush was really difficult, hard thing to do. I wanted this look to make it look like kind of like a retro metal kind of thing looking, like from old TV shows and stuff like that. Well, not TV shows, more like old paintings. And it was hard. It was really hard to do, but I kind of go to a place that I liked what I did, so I just leave it there and continued, because this was going to eat my mind. And you can be I'm doing a small reflected light in there. You can be very specific on your image, like try to do things very well, but don't get too crazy about things, dude. Like sometimes you have to like just chill out a little. And in this case, that part wasn't really that important in my mind for the image, so I just did my best, and that's how it looks. I added just a little tiny bit of detail on these things, even that I don't actually know the shape of that diamond. I had to do something to it because it looked way too simple before. Also on the shoulder pads, I added those little triangle shapes. And everything else, we're about to finish this image, so everything else is just details like this, kind of like a backlight kind of thing, more colorful. And that's about it, guys. This is my Glimmer fan art image. I really hope you like that, and it was very fun to do. It was very fun to do. I'm thinking about doing the other characters, especially Ketra, which is one of the villains of the series, and obviously eventually I will do Shira. But Ketra is the next one that I want to do, and because I'm doing like an anatomy course on a page called CGMA, I'm learning the anatomy of the face. Maybe I will use that as an excuse to do like the muscles of the face or something, so I'm learning, having fun if I do it that way. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video, if you endured to this minute of the image. And yeah, thank you. I will see you next time. Please give me a thumbs up and or a like, and turn off your notification bells, or share this painting, this image, with everyone that you think will be valuable, this information. And thank you very much. See you next time.